I'm serious. It is that type of theory. It is a very old theory, but I've been seeing it more and more lately, and I do think it has some merit. Now, I want to preface all this by saying I don't believe this shit. I don't believe this theory is going to happen because it would break the story. In my opinion, it would just shatter so many expectations, which can be good and bad. So let's talk about it. The crazy thing about theories, right, is that we go into the story and we have our own theories based on what we see, especially if we've been reading or watching for a long time. And for someone like me that's been reading and watching for a long time, it's really easy to get lost in your own theory. But it's not a bad thing. The only time a theory becomes bad is when you start believing so much in your theory that you then look at the author and then say, if you don't follow this theory based on my facts and evidence, you're wrong, or you're a bad writer or a bad author, or this is not what the story should be doing. Then that completely destroys all your expectations. And how could you enjoy the story at that point? And I'm guilty in the past, long ago, when I was trying to make theories a little bit, it affected me. This video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends, and honestly, there are times when you're bored and you're thinking about playing a game, but you want to play a quality game, and with Raid Shadow Legends, you can have that, a quality game right in your pocket, because you can play this game on mobile and desktop, so you can play anytime, anywhere. So this game reminds me of Magi, the anime, where you're basically going around and conquering dungeons. The newest boss just released in Raid is the biggest and craziest yet, okay? The thing is a Hydra, and with the Hydra is 6 different heads, but we're going to focus on 2 of them today. But it's crazy because each one is a complete boss battle on its own. So first, the head of suffering, all right? This is all about making you suffer, amongst other things, but it has a special effect called the pain link, which lets the head share some of the damage it takes with you, man. So you got to be careful about hurting it too much, because you're going to suffer as well. And if you're not careful, it's pretty much over for you, okay? So you're definitely going to need some formidable champions that can probably take care of the pain link debuff if you want to keep all the damage going in the direction of this head. The other head I want to focus on is the head of wrath. This head obviously gets very angry. It weakens and it taunts your team, but the real pain comes after you beat it up a little bit, because after you hit it 15 times, it gives itself a crazy buff, and that's called Vengeance, which, bro, it triples its attack power until the end of its next turn. So you gotta be careful about getting hit by Vengeance, so it's best to use champions that hit hard, but only hit once. But there's a ton happening in Raid this month, okay? To start off, Raid's releasing a bunch of awesome new champions, along with a brand new faction, War's Crypt, and that's from one of my favorite factions, the Shadowkin. This is gonna be crazy, it's gonna be amazing. I can't wait for the crypt to open so we can dive in and see what it's all about. On top of that, there's a ton of New Year's events and tournaments, including a special fusion event where you can get one of Raid's newest legendary champions. But there's never a better time to get started. Use my link in the description or scan my QR code. You'll get a free starter pack worth almost $30 to kickstart your game. We're talking about a free champion Aina, 200k silver, 1 energy refill and 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard, so you can summon awesome champions as soon as you get in the game. And for all you One Piece fans, you know this treasure will be waiting for you at this place, you know, in your inbox. But this is one of those theories that people have talked about, and it goes back to Shiryu, Mihawk, Zoro, that triangle, that dynamic. Now, when we talk about Shiryu, personally, right, I think Shiryu is one of the most disrespected commanders or characters in the story. Why do I think he's disrespected? Well, he is Blackbeard's top commander, confirmed by Oda, by the way. If you didn't know that, Oda did post a color spread with all the right hands. Zoro, Katakuri, Shiryu, Beppo. Not sure why Beppo was there. So this confirmed Shiryu was indeed Blackbeard's right hand. Maybe he's not his first commander because that's Burgess, but Burgess, we don't want Burgess to be the person that's fighting Zoro, do we? That's not the matchup we want at all. He's probably fighting Jinbei. We'll talk about the Straw Hat matchup versus the 10 Titanic captains at some point, but Shiryu is the most dangerous one. Still, if you ask a casual or even a diehard One Piece fan, they're gonna say, well, I think Zoro is already stronger than Shiryu, right? Because he's not as hyped up. The thing is though, you probably forgot how hyped up Shiryu was. Okay, back then in Impel Down, the story specifically says Shiryu was as strong or as dangerous as Magellan, and the reason for Impel Down having the reputation that he had was because of Shiryu and Magellan, right? Those two, not just Magellan, those two. And Ivankov even said Shiryu, because of his experience, probably had the slight edge. Now, what kind of confuses the viewer is, well, Shiryu was thrown in jail by Magellan, so he lost to Magellan essentially, right? But it kind of makes things a bit confusing. I think either way, Oda went out of his way to hype this character, right? Out of his way to say this person was equal, if not greater, to Magellan back then. Now this person, his dialogue is very intriguing because he says things that are profound and is telling us a bit. Again, one of the more underrated characters, not just in terms of strength, but just the characters and how important they are to the story. Not even just for Blackbeard, but also for Zoro and possibly Mihawk. We'll talk about that. So something Shiryu says when Blackbeard shows up is that I've been waiting for a man like you. Now, as the story progresses, you think, well, maybe a man like Blackbeard is willing to take risks, that's willing to do whatever. And he talks about Blackbeard and his luck and how, you know, all these things that he's accomplishing, he's hinting towards the fact that Blackbeard may be a different type of individual. It's not necessarily the same setup like Zoro and Luffy or even Rayleigh and Roger or even Kaido and King. It's a bit different because Shiryu is already established. Some may argue he was stronger than Blackbeard back then. I'm not gonna argue that because Blackbeard was a monster back then. He even beat Ace. But Shiryu back then, again, equal if not greater to Magellan, the person that they put in charge of Impel Down to run that place. Now fast forward 2 years, new Devil Fruit. I'm assuming he's gotten stronger. He is still disrespected and a lot of people don't expect much. Here's the problem. We expect Blackbeard to be Luffy's fiercest competitor, his one rival that we feel like has a chance to beat Luffy. I mean, he's not going to be. We feel like he has a chance to. However, we feel like his right hand is already weaker than Zoro. That doesn't make much sense to me. So yes, I think the Titanic captains are underrated, but that's because people don't respect Impel Down to level 6 as much, which to be fair, as we've grown post time skip, the scale has just changed. So until we see something post time skip to warrant that, it's kind of like, well, we saw Burgess versus Sabo and it was no contest. And a lot of people feel like Zoro is at that point or Sanji's close to Sabo. I mean, I think Sabo still eclipses those two, but I think it's close. And Sabo somewhat manhandled Burgess, but people think Burgess is Blackbeard's right hand. No, he's not. You see Burgess, you saw how he got manhandled by Shiryu. Burgess is the first division commander. So if you use that as a scale, you're like, well, Burgess got dominated by Sabo. Shiryu is probably under him. There's no way that Shiryu is stronger than Zoro. So therefore, Blackbeard is carrying this crew. No, Shiryu is the person we should worry about. And, you know, even his name, Shiryu of the Rain, a lot of people speculated, myself was like, the Wano is going to be some ties. I don't know. However, he is dangerous enough to be equal to someone like Magellan with an overpowered Devil Fruit like that. That's why it's so weird when we talk about him and nobody's giving him his credit because he really hasn't done anything. It's a lot of hype. But again, when Oda goes out of his way to hype a certain character in a story, we respect it. Weevil hype, Hancock hype, Doflamingo hype, caveats. Because even among the warlords, Aokiji mentioned Doflamingo is a bit different. Weevil, the strength of a young Whitebeard. Being hyped like that, where, okay, you're equal to, if not greater than Magellan, Oda's using these characters to tell us a story, set some expectation. Now, people, I'm guilty of this, go back to the Moria thing. It's like, well, he didn't even hurt Moria and he, you know, got a free hit on Moria. They didn't want to kill Moria. Obviously, they were recruiting Moria. That was like a warm-up slash. Like, hey, we took your man's Devil Fruit and there's nothing you can do about it. But the theory I want to talk about today, and here's a challenge that I'm placing on myself. If you guys subscribe to this channel, okay, subscribe right now to this channel. The plan is to make a video on every single character that was in the top 30 strongest, right? From 30 to 1, a specific video on each character. Unfortunately, Usopp was not in the top 30, so I know a lot of you guys are asking for the Usopp video. It is coming, I promise. But a specific video from 30, which was I forget, I think it was Kobe or Sanji. No, it wasn't Sanji. Whatever. But from Doflamingo all the way to Shanks. A specific video, probably a character analysis on each character, probably before the end of the year. We're not going to do that in 1 month. That's not possible. But you guys subscribe to the channel. But the theory that I'm talking about, the theory that would break the story that everyone hates, was a very popular theory. People don't believe it as much anymore because what it tied into back then, just want to let you guys know, was the fact that Shiryu would have Jozu's diamond fruit. Now, Jozu, we're not sure what's going on with him. He could be dead for all we know because he's gone through some things. I mean, it seems like he lost an arm and then they got overwhelmed by the Blackbeard part. So Jozu, we don't know. He could be deceased or just at some jewelry store somewhere, just working overtime. But the theory was that Shiryu takes Jozu's Devil Fruit and that he goes to challenge Mihawk, and because Mihawk apparently couldn't cut diamond, he loses. Well, that's not the case anymore because Shiryu, lo and behold, he comes back with the invisible fruit, the fruit that Absalom had. And we're like, well, that's nice. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. When I found out or saw that Shiryu had the invisible fruit, it was not one that I was like, oh my God, that is such an amazing fruit. I was like, cool. I was more interested in the Absalom thing, how they did it, how it was revealed that Absalom is indeed dead. But him having that devil fruit, I don't think most people are looking at it like, yeah, that's the one. That's the one I've been waiting for. I'm so happy he got that. No, not most people aren't doing that. But this does present an interesting scenario. So the diamond fruit, no, but for Shiryu now having the invisible fruit, a theory that's been popping up is that he goes and he defeats Mihawk. And again, this is from back then. And then Zoro defeats him for the title because Zoro's getting revenge, etc., etc., etc. I hate this. I hate it so much because I want the Zoro versus Mihawk fight. If we don't get that, then what was the point of all that? What was the point of don't lose again until you no, we need Zoro versus Mihawk. But I gotta say, I'm in the camp that was not too too fond, okay, of Mihawk training Zoro. Just gotta be real. And the reason why I wasn't too fond of it was because I was like, it is just weird to train somebody to beat you, right? I would much rather if it was no interaction until they meet again and fight seriously. Even though I don't think Mihawk is gonna hold back once he fights Zoro again, well, seriously for the title, it just personally took a bit of it away. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. It felt just, even though it's hype, it's good, it's great. That's the perfect person that could train Zoro. It's just, damn, you're training somebody to literally beat you. But when you're suffering from success like Mihawk is, when you've been on top for so long, desperate times calls for desperate measures. But even when Zoro showed up, he didn't want to train him. But when he saw just how Zoro was built a little different, he was like, yeah, you know what? Why not? That's when he decided to do it. So again, I'm indifferent on it, but we need the Zoro versus Mihawk matchup. Now, the Shiryu thing is indeed interesting because Shiryu, again, based on the hype, we need a feat. We need something concrete to make the Zoro versus Shiryu matchup mean something. Granted, we didn't get that with King, right? We didn't get a feat from King for us to say, well, this is necessary, but King was the first commander. We expect Zoro to have better control of Enma the next fight. Of course, better use of Conqueror's Haki, maybe a better blade, maybe an upgraded blade. So with all this, how does Shiryu stand a chance? Well, Shiryu with the invisible fruit. For Mihawk, something that people may not know that's discussed outside of the story, his epithet, or he's associated with clairvoyance. For the most part, his observation Haki should be top tier based on the perception and the reputation that precedes him. We presume that he has advanced Conqueror's Haki. And so based off of that, all these things coming together, how does one stand a chance like Shiryu, where your prime advantage seems to be being invisible, which that's why people think is going to be an obstacle for Zoro, not necessarily because of Shiryu's strength, but his craftiness, right? Him being invisible, him being able to make Zoro think and use observation Haki, which, let's be honest, is not Zoro's strength, but he's not terrible at observation Haki. His observation Haki is not the best, but Zoro has such insane reaction speed, right? When they shot that arrow and Zoro just reacted right away. Insane reaction speed, so he makes up for that lack of observation Haki. Now, finding out where someone is, he's done that before, he can do it again, but Shiryu could present an interesting dynamic to make this fight difficult for Zoro. Now, I think I'm getting more interested in Shiryu's past because saying Shiryu has more experience than Magellan is telling me that Shiryu was doing this for a while, but what was he doing before then? Why is he so bloodlusted? Why was he waiting for someone like Blackbeard? He's a very interesting character that hasn't been fleshed out yet. You gotta give it some time. Again, this theory, I don't think it comes to pass because Zoro meeting Mihawk again is way too important in my opinion. It's almost to the level of Luffy meeting Shanks. Almost up there. I can't tell you how elated I would be if Luffy met Shanks and Zoro met Mihawk at the same time. That would be crazy, right? Just that dynamic in the midst of the Straw Hat. But it just wouldn't make sense at the time because when Mihawk meets Zoro again without him being ready, because I think personally they meet Shanks the next arc, going to the next arc or in Elbaf, and Zoro's going to be hurt. He's going to be really hurt based on what's happening right now in Wano, because something we got to keep in mind, Zoro did not pass out from the drug. He passed out so the drug is still in effect. So Zoro can still get back up and fight a bit more. So Zoro has more to go. So once that drug hits, he is going to be hurt for a while. And we've seen it before in the story that Zoro's damages, they typically linger to different arcs. He's hurt in one arc and then the next arc is like, I can't go 100% because I'm still hurt. So it wouldn't be surprising if it happened again. Shiryu defeating Mihawk, I would say probably a 5% chance, if that, because of the importance to the narrative. Shiryu does need something to solidify him. Granted, that could be Ben Beckman, because Ben Beckman has gotten a lot of hype inside and outside of the story. If Shiryu beats Ben Beckman, there's no choice but to respect him, because you're like, well, Ben Beckman, a lot of people regard as the strongest right hand right now because Rayleigh, for the most part, is retired. So if Shiryu beats him, shouldn't that be enough? I mean, I think so. But guys, give me your thoughts. Do you think there's any validity to this theory? What do you think happens with Shiryu? How does Oda make this interesting? Shiryu versus Zoro, if this is indeed the matchup, because I mean, I expect it to be. I mean, who else would he fight? And what are your expectations? So give me that. Make sure to like the video if you did. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BragoDAce. Follow me on Instagram, BragoD.Ace. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys all so much. Again, guys, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
I start doubting me, I felt lost. I rewrite it.